The second year I was married to Ruby, Steven sent a bunch of guys to crash my dad's funeral. They threw paint, set off firecrackers, hung up banners, and blasted celebration on a loop. All because me, Ruby's legal husband, was an eyesore to him and their shippers. At that exact moment, Ruby and Steven were on a promotional tour for their new movie premiere. A reporter in the audience asked them about regrets in love. She turned to look at her co-star, silent. Steven's eyes sparkled as he delivered the movie's most iconic line. "I'd love to hold your hand, but your wedding ring, it digs into me." That's right. I was the rock blocking the path of their true love. And this time I was ready to get out of their way and save myself. I was trying my best to greet friends and family when I got the call from Ruby's assistant. "Mr. Kane, Ruby asked me to tell you she's sorry. The studio insisted she attend the premiere tour at the last minute. You know we can't afford to piss them off. Please try to understand." Was it the studio that wanted her there? Or was it Steven? The line went quiet for a moment. I didn't want to hear the rest, so I just hung up. My agent, Ben, looked at me and sighed. "I told you that which was bad news, but you wouldn't listen. Look at this mess." He patted my shoulder comfortingly. "Don't let it get to you. I'm here, man. I've got your back. Let's just focus on giving your dad a proper send-off today." Today was my dad's funeral, and my wife, Ruby, was a no-show. It wasn't just today. She'd never once shown up for any important event in my life, big or small. I'd been the one chasing her from the time I was 18 until I was 28. Even with Leo Kane and Ruby printed on our marriage certificate, to her, I was still less than a dog. When the mob crashed my dad's funeral, I just froze. A crowd of people started screaming for me to die, then began splashing red paint all over the memorial wreaths. The scene devolved into chaos. My chest tightened, my head spun, and I nearly fainted from pure rage. Ben grabbed me just in time, shouting at the people around us, "Call the cops! Somebody call the cops! These people are insane." I steadied myself and dialed 911, my voice shaking uncontrollably. I felt so wronged, and I couldn't stop myself from calling Ruby. The phone rang once before she bluntly declined the call. For a second, I felt like I was dying. The world was a spinning, noisy blur, and I was utterly alone. By the time the police cars arrived, a bright red banner reading congratulations on the death of Leo Kane's father was still hanging crookedly, and a speaker was still blasting celebration on a loop. My dad's portrait was right there in the center of the hall. The chaos only ended when the police subdued the troublemakers. The guy in charge was a stranger with bleached blonde hair and shifty eyes. I'd never seen him before in my life. When the police demanded to know why he was causing a scene, the man shot me a contemptuous, mocking smirk. "Just don't like the look of him." He pointed a lazy finger at me. "You could say I'm one of Mr. Kane's biggest haters." I forced myself to take a deep breath to calm down. In the end, the group was taken away on charges of disturbing the peace. As the blonde guy was being pushed into the police car, he suddenly turned and mouthed something at me. When I realized what he was saying, something inside me snapped, and my heart sank to the pit of my stomach. The silent word was homewrecker. That was my nickname. I'd been an actor for 8 years, never really making it big. The day the news broke that I was married to Ruby, the haters came out of the woodwork overnight. Back then, the media was all over her and Steven's on-screen romance. Their shippers blew up the hashtag about our marriage, flooding my social media with tens of thousands of hateful comments. And that's how I got my infamous nickname, the homewrecker. Because in their world, the rumor was that Ruby's true love was Steven. That made me the unloved one, the other man. I always knew their shippers were crazy, but I never imagined they'd be crazy enough to crash my dad's funeral and desecrate the memory of an innocent man. My dad was a good person his whole life. He didn't deserve to be insulted like this because of Ruby. When he was alive, he never approved of me trailing after her like a puppy. I used to just laugh it off, telling him I was just brave enough to chase after love. I glanced at my dad's portrait. The old man wore the same kind, gentle smile he always had. I felt the tears welling up. "Dad, I'm so sorry. It's pathetic that it took me 10 years to understand that unrequited love isn't courage. Being a doormat, letting someone walk all over you, that's not courage either. After everything was cleaned up and the guests had left, only Ben remained by my side. He tossed his phone at me, annoyed. "Leo, see for yourself. Your wife is trending again." I was emotionally exhausted. I didn't even have to look to know what it was. Another hashtag about her and Steven. Ruby, the award-winning actress, and Steven, the award-winning actor. Hollywood's favorite on-screen couple. I opened it and countless fan-made videos of them popped up. In a clip from today's premiere, they stood side by side. A reporter carefully danced around the subject, asking them about their regrets in love. Steven's eyes twinkled as he smiled and delivered that classic line. "I'd love to hold your hand, but your wedding ring, it digs into me." In an instant, the audience went wild. The camera panned to Ruby. She looked composed, meeting his gaze directly, but her hand, the one with the wedding ring, was clenched into a fist. The tension was electric. They were barely holding it together, maintaining a fragile facade of professionalism. I watched the video with a blank expression, a bitter laugh building in my chest. A few years ago, this would have sent me into a jealous rage. We would have had a massive fight, and in the end, I would have been defeated by her silence and coldness, forced to pretend it never happened and just move on. I don't know why, but in that moment, a memory of our wedding flashed through my mind. I remembered putting the ring on her finger, telling her she could never take it off. Not when she was eating, showering, or sleeping. Never. Her face was cold, but she agreed without hesitation. "I won't." And like a fool, I thought that meant she loved me too, at least for that 1 second. But now, our wedding ring had become the silver handcuff keeping her from her true love. I scrolled down past the video to the comments. The shippers were in a frenzy. "OMG, does anyone see the look in Ruby's eyes? It's that I've already confessed my love in every glance I give you vibe. I'm crying, they're so perfect. They don't need to make it official. Everyone just knows." Does anyone else feel like Ruby is living out her dreams through her movies? Steven is the leading man in every single one of her films. Replying to above, totally. They're both such classy people with high morals. They feel the love but keep it respectful. They can't be together in real life, so this is all they have. Then there was one stray comment. "Can't you guys just ship them in the movies? Shipping a married woman with someone else in real life is kinda weird." The replies were unanimous. "Leo, log into your main. Ooh, the morality police are here to judge us." So scary. Everyone was convinced this was proof of their tragic, real-life love story. They were using the movie's script to publicly declare the love they couldn't otherwise express. Besides blowing up the hashtag and their fan pages, the shippers had also left tens of thousands of comments on my social media. "LMAO. So glad to see everyone is dragging you. You can't force love. So what if you managed to trap her into marriage?" Lol. I was tired of reading it. While Ruby was busy sharing the screen with Steven, their shippers were busy cyberbullying me and crashing my dad's funeral. I slipped the wedding ring off my finger and turned to Ben, my eyes dry but my voice cracking. "I want a divorce." I was done being the third wheel in their epic love story. Ben stared at me for a second. "You've finally come to your senses." He slammed his hand on the table, grinning. "A divorce is the best thing you could do. It's what your dad would have wanted." When I got a call from Ruby's phone, I didn't expect Steven to be on the other end. A clear voice came through the receiver. "Mr. Kane, Ruby's had too much to drink. Could you come pick her up?" I didn't have the energy to wonder how Steven knew Ruby's passcode. I just let out a bitter laugh. So, I was supposed to host my dad's funeral during the day, then play Uber driver for her at night? It suddenly hit me just how much I had let her walk all over me. In the past, no matter how late it was, one call from one of her friends, and I'd be there to carry a dead drunk Ruby home from some party. But this was the first time Steven had ever called. "Sure thing. Send me the address," I said with a slight chuckle. Then I calmly hung up and turned off my phone. I opened the window and lit a cigarette. I took a deep drag, the cold air filling my lungs along with the smoke. Ruby hated the smell of cigarettes. The first time I'd ever smoked was 10 years ago. I was 18 when my dad was suddenly diagnosed with lung cancer. Ruby and I had just started trying to make it as actors. I borrowed money from everyone I knew, but it wasn't even a tenth of what we needed for his medical bills. A fairly well-known director approached me and said money wasn't an issue on one condition. I had to sleep with one of the investors. He had this slimy, evil grin when he said it. His eyes narrowed to slits. I almost threw up. I sat up all night in the hospital, staring into space. The little boy in the next bed offered me a cigarette. Before the sun came up, I figured if I just closed my eyes, I could probably keep myself from puking. I'd do anything to save my dad. So I borrowed a lighter from the kid, planning to smoke it and go. Just as I exhaled the first ring of smoke, Ruby showed up. She slapped the cigarette out of my mouth, her eyes colder than I'd ever seen them. Then she tossed a bank card at me. Ruby said she'd been cast in a big production and gotten an advance on her salary. She sneered, "You don't have to debase yourself now." And just like that, on that day, I fell head over heels in love with Ruby. Weird, right? Considering how she'd just insulted me. But it made sense in a way. She'd saved my dad, and in doing so, she'd saved me too. It was only natural that I'd fall for her. After that, I became her loyal dog. If she told me to go east, I'd never dare go west. She said the sight of me smoking made her sick to her stomach, so I never touched a cigarette again. Until this year when my dad's lung cancer came back. I had plenty of money, lots of it, but it was useless. When I got the call that he was in critical condition, I lit a cigarette, and I couldn't stop. My thoughts returned to the present. The city lights flickered in the night, blurred by the white smoke I exhaled. A gust of cold wind made me shiver. I felt a strange sense of clarity. All these years, the love, the hate, it all felt like a long, hazy dream. I was curled up on the living room sofa. At 2 in the morning, the clock chimed twice, and the front door suddenly opened. Ruby switched on the entryway light. Her eyes landed on the glowing red tip of the cigarette between my fingers. But all she did was frown slightly. "Can't sleep?" I didn't say anything. I didn't get up to greet her like I used to, wrapping my arms around her waist and murmuring her name. Ruby pinched the bridge of her nose, looking exhausted. She walked over to me. "I'm sorry I couldn't be at Dad's funeral. I'll go see him first thing in the morning." Ruby sat down beside me, smoothly took the cigarette from my hand, and stubbed it out in the ashtray. "I know you're hurting," she said, looking down at me. "But I didn't have a choice, Leo." I ignored her and lit another cigarette. "Who brought you home?" She seemed taken aback by the question, freezing for a second. I let out a self-deprecating laugh. "Steven called me from your phone, said you were drunk and needed a ride. I didn't go. So who brought you home?" Ruby was silent for a moment. "I didn't know he called you." I looked at her. It was all so clear. A famous actor dropping a married actress home in the middle of the night. I said mockingly, "If a paparazzi caught that, your shippers would have a field day." "Leo." Her eyes went cold as she said my full name. "It's just a publicity stunt. He just gave me a ride because it was on his way." "Really? Then how did he unlock your phone?" "My wife's phone passcode. A secret to me, her legal husband, but known to her publicity stunt on-screen partner." She frowned. "I don't know." This time I couldn't help but laugh. "Then what do you know?" I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Do you know that your shippers trashed my dad's funeral today?" I didn't want to get hysterical like I used to, but in that moment, I realized just how much Ruby's coldness and distance over the years had gotten to me. She didn't even call me back after the premiere. She never even asked me what was wrong. I looked at her, my love, my wife, the flame I'd been throwing myself into for 10 years. A sharp pain shot through my heart. I squeezed my aching fist. "Ruby, we dragged this out long enough. It was time to stop. Let's get a divorce. It's what you've always wanted. I'll set you free, and I'll free myself." "What did you say?" Ruby's face instantly darkened. I felt a wave of exhaustion and didn't want to speak. She grabbed my arm. Her cold eyes scanned my face, and she practically ground out the words, "Leo Kane, I dare you to say that again." I almost laughed out loud. 10 years ago, on the day my dad was discharged from the hospital, Ruby showed up with a bouquet of flowers to pick us up. I tentatively asked her if she wanted to go out with me. Her body stiffened, and when she looked at me again, her eyes were filled with an icy contempt. "Leo Kane, you've fallen for me just like that? You're so cheap." We'd known each other since we were kids, and we'd always rubbed each other the wrong way. I knew that her thin lips could spit out the cruelest, coldest words imaginable. So I didn't care. I shamelessly latched onto her. She scoffed. "Leo Kane, I can date you, but I will never love you, and I will certainly never marry you." Her tone was vicious and cruel. Anyone else would have probably given up. But I wasn't anyone else. So I watched as Ruby's career soared in the entertainment industry, while I struggled, unable to keep up no matter how hard I tried. My career is taking off right now. I can't go public with our relationship. If you can't accept that, you can get lost, she informed me from her pedestal. I just grinned. I can accept that. After all, my worst-case scenario was her dumping me. But she didn't, which was a pleasant surprise. Until we were secretly photographed, went viral, and our 8-year relationship was exposed. Ruby, with her perfect public image, saw her popularity plummet. Netizens accused her of being irresponsible for being in an 8-year relationship without making it official or getting married. My dad saw the articles and stormed over to Ruby's place, his face grim. "I'm putting my foot down. You two are breaking up. From now on, you have nothing to do with our family." She refused. So we logically proceeded to get married, and everyone was happy. Everyone except Steven, the shippers, and Ruby. The day we got our marriage license, Ruby frowned through the whole thing. In our official photo, she looked completely reluctant. "If you really don't want to, we don't have to do this," I said, testing her. "We could just stage a wedding, put on a show. That could work too." She sneered. "We're already doing it. What's the point of being wise after the fact?" From dating to marriage, she was like a reed in a flood, swept along inch by inch. I knew Ruby had never wanted any of it. Just like how when she was 15 and abandoned by her parents, it was my dad who fed her and paid for her schooling. She was with me, married me, to repay that debt. Maybe she'd always resented me for holding her back, and that resentment extended to not wanting to see my dad one last time. But now that I was offering her a divorce, offering her freedom, why was she acting like she didn't understand? I said, "Let's get a divorce." "Leo Kane, you're insane." She scooped me up in her arms. Couldn't break free. She carried me to the bedroom and threw me onto the bed. Just as I thought she was about to pull some dramatic, possessive movie scene, she just threw a blanket over me. "We're sleeping in separate rooms tonight. You need to calm down and think things over." Ruby turned and walked out. This was her signature move, the cold shoulder. It always worked on me. Whenever my emotions ran high, Ruby would suddenly withdraw and refuse to communicate, leaving me feeling like I was punching a pillow. I was terrified of her coldness, so I would start to blame myself, tearing myself down until I finally gave in, begging for her approval like a dog. It was always the same, but now, stepping back from the relationship, I could see it for what it was, a complete and total test of my submission. For all these years, I was never even worthy of having an emotional exchange with her. Once I'd figured that out, I texted my lawyer and forced myself to sleep. When I woke up, Ruby was already gone. It was usually like this. This place was as cold and impersonal as a hotel to her. Maybe I shouldn't have insisted on calling it a home. The lawyer who dropped off the divorce papers had just left when Ruby pushed the door open. She walked up quickly behind me and wrapped me in a hug. "I'm sorry." Her warm breath ghosted across my neck. "I already went to see Dad, and I've taken care of the people who caused trouble yesterday. Don't be mad anymore, okay?" I turned to look at her, putting an arm between us and forcing a smile. "Is there anything else you want to say?" Ruby looked at me, confused. She rarely used her connections to help me out. This was one of the very few times I could remember. The entertainment industry is a tough place, especially for an actor like me who got a late start. I was used to being given a hard time and looked down upon. Whenever I mentioned it to her, Ruby would just give me a half smile and say mockingly, "Leo, everyone goes through that." Then she'd pat my head. Don't be discouraged. Okay? I'll be waiting for you at the top. Over time, everyone knew that the great Ruby kept a clear distance from me in the industry. The people who judged you based on who you knew became more and more common. And this time, I clutched my phone and looked Ruby straight in the eye. Don't tell me you don't know who was behind it. My phone was still open to the message from Ben. The trashing of my dad's funeral had ties to Stephen. I didn't know he hated me that much. He'd covered his tracks well, there was no concrete evidence. But he'd left just enough of a hint for me to know it was him. And until this very moment, Ruby was still covering for him. Her helping me out was really just protecting him. Faced with the truth, Ruby's expression soured, pushed her away. Enough. I picked up the divorce papers from the table and threw them at her. Ruby, I'm out. She picked the papers up off the floor. As she read them, her face turned to ice. Ruby looked at me in disbelief. Leo Kane, stop being ridiculous. It's not what you think. I found it kind of funny. I watched her, waiting. Then tell me, what is it? Without clear evidence, I can't just go around accusing my professional partner, she said impatiently, reaching for my hand. If you're trying to use divorce to make me back down, Leo, congratulations, it worked. She pulled me into a fierce hug, her voice laced with anger. I'll cut back on my contact with him from now on. Are you satisfied? I suddenly felt an overwhelming sadness. So all these years, she knew exactly what I wanted. She just never gave it to me. Ruby, you're not thinking clearly right now. Pushed her away. Let's separate for a while. You should really think about this. I threw her own words right back at her. As she watched me call a moving company, the anger on Ruby's face suddenly vanished. She leaned against the guest room doorframe, arms crossed, a look of absolute confidence on her face. Leo Kane, you've really grown a backbone. She scoffed. If you walk out of this house today, don't ever come back. Then she spun around, went into the room, and slammed the door with a deafening crash. Even then, she was still so sure that I would never leave her. Ruby didn't take a single step out of that room, not even as I moved the last of my belongings out of the house. I moved into the apartment my dad had lived in. Traces of his life were everywhere, and it felt comforting. To get me back on my feet, Ben managed to get me an audition for the supporting role in a film by a well-known director. I gave it everything I had and landed the part. Ruby never contacted me. Surprisingly, I found that life without her was freer, more comfortable. Until one night, my phone suddenly rang. I groggily picked it up. Ben was on the other end, hesitant. Leo, what's up? What happened? I rubbed my eyes. He was silent for a second. Stephen and Ruby were photographed going into a hotel late at night. X's completely down. My hand trembled, and the phone fell onto the bed. Even though I had already decided to divorce Ruby, it still stung. I never saw this coming. You guys aren't even divorced yet. Those two, seriously, they have no shame. Ben was grinding his teeth, furious on my behalf. Don't drag this out. Use the public opinion to force a quick divorce. If that doesn't work, sue her. Ben hung up and I tried to open X. The page was just a blank gray screen with a reload button. After a while, I finally got in. The trending list was topped with Ruby cheats with Stephen and my ship is real. There had been similar rumors before, claiming Ruby was cheating on me with Stephen. But most of it was just speculation without any real proof. Both of their teams would always issue statements immediately, a well-oiled machine of denials and clarifications. So the shippers had always called them soulmates, two classy people who felt the love but were too moral to ever cross the line. But they couldn't help but get carried away, saying that they'd done everything but sleep together. This time, I clicked the hashtag and saw a huge, high-definition photo of Stephen helping Ruby into a hotel. The kind of photo that's impossible to deny. The comment section was on fire. The shipper's celebration only enraged everyone else, and countless regular people jumped in to defend me. 8 years of a secret relationship, 2 years of marriage, all for this. When I thought about it, yeah, my life was pretty miserable. Both of their studios were strangely silent. Under the latest promotional post for their movie, the top comment was, "Why no denial? Is it because it's not a rumor?" My notifications were blowing up. The comments section had transformed from shippers' insults to messages of sympathy from fans and strangers. My heart breaks for him. Die, you cheating scumbags. I can't imagine what this guy has been through all these years. With that level of patience, you can succeed at anything. I used to hate on the shippers. How could you ship a married woman? Turns out they were shipping the real thing all along. My reputation was completely turned around. Strangers rushed to my defense, and I gained tens of thousands of followers in a short time. But Ruby and Steven's fans were also trying to control the narrative. Trust our girl. We all know Ruby's character. There has to be more to the story. Don't judge without knowing the full picture. Let's wait and see. LMAO at people calling our Steven the other man. Everyone knows Leo is the homewrecker. He was probably already divorced, if you know what I mean. Leo, stop playing dead and come out and say something. I almost wanted to laugh, but my lips wouldn't move. I couldn't manage a smile. We weren't even divorced yet, and my wife was already so eager to be seen with another man. After some thought, I sent Ruby a message. Courthouse, 8 a.m. After we divorce, I'll release a statement on social media to clear your name. At 8 a.m., Ruby was there as promised. She took off her sunglasses, her face pale in the sunlight. Leo Kane, you're really dead set on this divorce, aren't you? I didn't know how she had the nerve to say that. I didn't answer, just started walking toward the courthouse entrance. She grabbed my wrist, refusing to move. Last night was a misunderstanding. It's not what you think. I drank too much and he just got me a room at the nearest hotel. That's all. Ruby's voice was impatient as she rushed through the explanation. I believe you. I stopped and turned around. I saw a surprising spark of hope in her eyes. I forced a smirk. Go ahead and use that excuse in your official statement. See if your fans believe it, see if the public believes it. 2 in the morning, a man and a woman, alone, after drinking at a hotel. Time, place, people, plot, it had all the elements of a perfect scandal. If Ruby dared to say that, her and Steven's careers would be over. She was speechless, choked by my words. We get divorced. I let you and Steven be the perfect couple you're meant to be, and I'll tell the media we had already agreed to separate a long time ago, but got delayed for various reasons. That way, you and Steven aren't technically cheating. It's a win-win for you. What are you hesitating for? I looked at Ruby, confused, and couldn't resist a taunt. Or is it, Ruby, that you've actually fallen in love with me? You can't bear to let me go? The words were barely out of my mouth before I wanted to laugh myself. As if she had an ounce of feeling for me. If she did, she wouldn't have let her shippers cyberbully me for years. She wouldn't have left me to be humiliated at my own dad's funeral. And she certainly wouldn't be going to hotels with another man before our divorce was even final. I looked at the person in front of me. I had to admit, I'd started falling for her long before that morning at the hospital 10 years ago. Back when we were teenagers, she was from a wealthy family, top of her class. She was the kid next door my dad always compared me to, my natural-born rival. At the school sports meet, during the 3,000-meter race, she was on the announcer's platform, reading messages of encouragement. I was gasping for air, about to give up, when I heard her clear voice. Suddenly, I found the strength to keep going. If her mother hadn't had an affair and her father hadn't walked out, if the golden girl hadn't become an orphan overnight, Ruby would have never given me a second glance. The day my dad invited her over for dinner after she hadn't eaten for 3 days, she finally noticed me. You are? My surprise turned to shock. I stared for a moment, then sneered. Are you blind? I sat right in front of her. By then, we'd been in the same class for 3 years. I refused to believe I was that unnoticeable. I preferred to think she was just that arrogant. From then on, we couldn't stand each other. But it turns out I might not have been a star, but I wasn't a nobody either. I'd worked my way up to where I am today. I'd won awards, gained fans, earned praise. I was shining my own little light in my own corner of the world. It's just that from then until now, Ruby had never once truly seen me. All this time, she'd never really looked at me. I had worked for 10 years just for that one look. 10 years later, I had to admit, I shouldn't have been so desperate for it. Looking at her now, A nasty thought crossed my mind. If you kneel and beg me, I might consider not divorcing you. She was stunned. As she stood there frozen, I laughed again. Just kidding. You could kowtow to me 10 times and it wouldn't make a difference. She laughed, furious. Leo Kane, you were the one who begged me to date you, begged me to marry you. Don't you regret this? No regrets, I said, my voice firm. After we filed the papers, Ruby looked at me coldly. There's a 1-month cooling off period. If you change your mind, you can cancel it at any time. I smiled. Whoever backs out is a dog. Seeing I was resolute, Ruby turned and left in a huff, getting into her car with a stony expression. I just stood there for a long time. Suddenly, I felt like a chain that had bound me for 10 years had just vanished. The sun was so bright. I drafted a statement explaining that Ruby and I had planned to divorce a while ago but had been delayed for various reasons, and that we had recently filed the paperwork. Then I posted it on my social media. Soon after, both of our studios released simple, vague clarifications, stating they were just friends. This move helped Ruby win back some public favor. Some people figured she wasn't technically cheating, since our relationship was already over. Others still thought she and Steven were scum who had definitely been hooking up for a while, and there was evidence to support that. I closed my social media apps, done with all the drama. I had done more than enough, but with Steven I wasn't finished. No matter what, for disturbing a dead man's peace, he had crossed a line, and so would I. I just didn't expect to see Ruby again so soon. The movie started filming shortly after. On the first day on set, I discovered that the original leads had been replaced by Ruby and Steven. I was speechless. A director of this caliber couldn't possibly afford 2 A-listers like them. It was almost funny. The lengths they would go to just to mess with me. The rest of the cast and crew seemed to sense the weird vibe too. Everyone was unusually quiet. Only the director and the investors were grinning from ear to ear. After all, the 3 of us and our tangled relationships were a walking headline. The movie was already generating massive buzz without a single bit of promotion. Ben's face was grim. How can they be such assholes? But at this point, it was too late to back out. It is what it is, I told him calmly. But seeing the 2 of them laughing and joking in front of me was still unsettling. Especially the way Ruby would sneak casual glances at me, and how Steven would size me up from time to time. The director said my scenes with Steven would be filmed later. By the time it was my turn, it was already late, and everyone was visibly exhausted. For this scene, my character had to go through several layers of emotion, and I had spent all night preparing. Facing Steven for the first time, he looked down at me with a smile. Mr. Kane, a pleasure to work with you. The shoot went smoothly. I could hear people around me praising my performance, and I couldn't help but smile a little. Even opposite an award-winning superstar like Steven, I held my own and matched his energy perfectly. The director beamed and called cut, but just as he was about to move on, Steven stopped him. Everyone was confused. He pointed at me. I think Mr. Kane still has room for improvement in that last take. Wouldn't you all agree? Steven blinked, his handsome face looking gentle and harmless. But no one on set dared to disagree. People exchanged nervous glances. I took a breath, forced a smile, and said, "Let's do it again." Then, so we did it again and again, take after take. Over and over. By the time it was early morning, the crew was muttering complaints under their breath. The director finally spoke up, tentatively suggesting, "Maybe we should call it a day?" Steven strode over to the director and casually reviewed the footage. After a few seconds of thought, he said, "I think my performance was best in the first take. Let's just use that one." And with that, he walked off. After the crowd dispersed, my assistant ran up to me, fuming. He did that on purpose. Her lip trembled. "I'm so angry for you." While I was waiting for my car, I saw a familiar figure walking toward me. It was Ruby. She stood in front of me, hands in her pockets, silent for a moment. "What is it?" I knew Ruby had been in the crowd, just watching, while Steven was giving me a hard time. Without the filter of love, the thought that the person I had adored for 10 years was actually like this, it made me feel sick. She didn't say anything, so I turned to leave with my assistant. As I passed her, She suddenly grabbed my arm. "Leo, I can get back at him for you," she said, pausing. "All you have to do is give in." Before I could speak, my assistant, unable to stand it anymore, slapped her hand away. She sneered. "Ruby, you need to have some shame. I don't believe for a second you didn't have a hand in what happened today. Guess what? Once he was out from under your thumb, he realized it wasn't even raining." Ruby's face went pale. Her lips pressed into a thin line as she stubbornly waited for my answer. I gathered my patience and told her, slowly and clearly, "Stay away from me. You make me sick." She staggered slightly, as if she couldn't believe those words came from my mouth. Finally, her lips trembled. "I'm sorry. I won't let him give you a hard time again." That's all I heard. The rest of her words were carried away by the wind. After that, Stephen really did stop bothering me. Except for our scenes together, I stayed as far away from both of them as possible. A few times, Ruby tried to talk to me, but I always managed to avoid her. Going from husband and wife to strangers wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. The day our divorce was finalized was also the last day of filming. At the wrap party that night, everyone was busy fawning over the two leads. After a few drinks, Ruby sat there, restlessly rubbing the rim of her glass, clearly impatient, especially when her gaze swept over to me. Stephen was flushed, a little drunk. He reached out to grab her sleeve, his voice a little whiny. "Ruby, I'm drunk. Will you take me home?" She paused, her eyes instinctively flicking toward me. I was sitting in a corner, sipping my drink, not saying a word. I didn't even look at her. The entertainment industry is full of people who know which way the wind blows. Even with me, Ruby's ex-husband, in the room, it didn't stop them from sucking up to the two of them. One person, emboldened by alcohol, even blurted out, "Are we going to be hearing wedding bells soon?" My expression didn't change. But Ruby, apparently not getting the reaction she wanted from me, turned cold. She irritably shook off Stephen's hand. "If you're drunk, call a car. I'm not your driver." The smiles on everyone's faces froze. The hazy look in Stephen's eyes sharpened, and the color drained from his face. He was used to being the center of attention, coddled and adored. When had he ever been publicly humiliated like this? But because it was Ruby, he couldn't lash out. Tears welled in his eyes. Stephen gritted his teeth, downed his drink in one gulp. "Excuse me." He grabbed his bag and, ignoring everyone, turned to leave. I glanced at my watch. It was about time. As luck would have it, before he could even get out of sight, the door swung open and a group of police officers walked in, flashing their badges. "Mr. Stephen, please come with us for questioning." It happened so fast. Everyone was stunned. Stephen froze in place. The director knocked over a glass, which shattered with a loud crash. Someone stepped forward. "Is there some kind of mistake?" Of all the people there, the director looked the most horrified. The movie had just wrapped. It hadn't even been submitted for review yet. If his leading man became a criminal, he'd be ruined. He'd lose everything, no matter what anyone said or thought. After a few minutes of chaos, Stephen was taken away. The wrap party ended in disarray. Walking out of the hotel, I felt great. I lit a cigarette, enjoying the cool breeze. Ruby caught up to me from behind, looking like she wanted to say something, but she didn't say anything. She just took off her jacket and draped it over my shoulders. "Do you hate me?" I asked her. She didn't seem to understand. "What?" I stopped walking and tucked a stray strand of hair behind my ear. "For wasting so many years of your life, or for about to destroy your beloved? Do you hate me?" Ruby shook her head and opened her mouth as if to explain. But all she said was, "You should be the one who hates me. I'm so sorry for everything I put you through." I couldn't help but scoff. "At least you're self-aware." Looking at her lost, haunted eyes, I found it amusing. Smoke blew into my eyes, and they started to water. It stung. I coughed a couple of times. Ruby frantically tried to wipe my tears away and took the cigarette from my hand. I wiped my face and casually draped her jacket over her arm. "Let's go." Some things, like smoke in the wind, just disappear. Stephen was brought in on suspicion of inciting public disturbance. He wasn't some saint to have climbed so high in the entertainment industry. It wasn't just me. Other actors who had crossed him had all suffered at his hands in one way or another. He cultivated a harmless, innocent public persona, but behind the scenes, his methods were dirty. He even had a crew of people who did his dirty work for him. Trashing my dad's funeral was just one of many things. When you do enough bad things, no matter how well you clean up, you'll always leave a trace. I had someone gather all the evidence and secretly sent it to one of his old rivals, a washed-up actor whose face he had ruined, forcing him to quit the industry. As expected, the actor immediately reported him. He also bought a ton of press. With Steven's level of fame, the moment he was arrested, gossip bloggers jumped on the story, blowing it up. His studio issued a legal threat, promising to sue anyone spreading rumors. But they were immediately slapped in the face by an official police statement. Steven was a criminal. His reputation tanked overnight. Massive numbers of fans turned on him, and the shippers vanished into thin air. All sorts of scandals started popping up like weeds. Bullying in high school, skipping college classes for filming, being a diva on set, sabotaging his rivals with smear campaigns. Even the story of how he deliberately gave me a hard time on set was leaked by a crew member. I and several other victims became objects of public sympathy. Ruby, who always loved being associated with Steven for publicity, didn't fare much better. Her public image collapsed, with only her most die-hard fans sticking by her. Her new movie was a box office bomb, and as an investor, she lost a fortune. She was dropped by several luxury brands, her TV show appearances were canceled, and for the foreseeable future, she was uncastable. It just goes to show, those who live by public opinion will die by public opinion. My only loss was that the movie I made with Steven would probably never be released. Looking at the countless scripts Ben sent over, I picked a few good ones and gave him a call. After I finish these, I'm quitting. I'll have enough to retire, and I want to travel the world. Finally, I could live for myself again. Epilogue. When I was little, my dad used to tell me, "Ruby, you were born a princess. You'll get everything you ever want." And he was right. In school, I barely had to try to get top grades. I inherited the best of my parents' looks, and I'd been getting love letters since I was a kid. Over time, I really started to believe I was special. Before I was 15, I barely paid attention to anyone else. My indifference and arrogance were seen as maturity by my teachers and aloofness by my classmates. They found all sorts of ways to attach beautiful words to me. It was strange, until one day the sky fell. That day, my mom brought home her lover's daughter. She was only a few months younger than me, ugly and bad at school, but she paraded in front of me with a malicious grin. "Sorry, your mom is my mom now." "Oh wait, she was always my mom." "You don't have a mom." I told her she was full of shit. It was the first time I'd ever cursed. But she was right. My mom really didn't want me anymore. I couldn't understand why she would choose that ugly, stupid girl over me. Later, my dad looked at my face and said, "You look just like your mother. It's disgusting." Then he left and never came back. My dad didn't want me either. Even though they had always said I looked more like him, that I was beautiful like him. That year, at 15, I suddenly realized I was special. Especially miserable. That was the year I learned to pay attention to other people. The first person I noticed was Mr. Kane from the next building. He said, "You poor kid." He said, "Come eat at my place." The second person I noticed was Mr. Kane's son, Leo Kane. He was so rude. The first time we met, he called me blind. I hated him. I didn't understand why my world had been turned upside down. My teacher said, "Cat got your tongue. Kid, why don't you talk anymore? Being so quiet isn't good." My classmates said her mom and dad both abandoned her. "Look how gloomy she is every day. It's creepy." That's when that annoying Leo Kane stepped in. "So what if she doesn't want to talk? Your obsession with other people's vocal cords is really weird. So what if she doesn't have parents? You have parents? If your parents raised you to be like this, you'd be better off without them." Suddenly, I thought maybe he wasn't so bad. But he got sent to the principal's office for insulting a teacher and his classmates. When he came out, he shot me a furious glare. My heart started pounding. But he seemed to hate me even more after that. Later, for a while, we were inseparable. We went to class, walked home, and ate dinner together. Sometimes I'd even help him with his homework. He became almost as important to me as my own hands and feet. After that, I can't really remember clearly. That was probably the most painful time of my life. I vaguely remember Leo got a girlfriend. She was just as wild and chaotic as he was. He started skipping class, climbing over the school walls, going to internet cafes. It gave his dad a huge headache. We didn't walk home together anymore. He didn't have time to stand up for me. While the teacher was yelling at me for my plummeting grades, he was passing notes to his girlfriend, asking what she wanted for lunch. While a group of girls cornered me in the bathroom and beat me up, he was at an internet cafe, playing games with his girlfriend, the sound of his keyboard clattering away. I started to hate him. Why was he ignoring me? Why wasn't he protecting me anymore? I think he did try to check on me once, in a moment stolen from his romance. He asked about the bruises under my eyes. But by then, I had learned how to shut people up. None of your business. So we drifted apart. Until after graduation. He didn't get into college and insisted on following his girlfriend to the big city to try and make it. His dad said he was heartless, abandoning his old man for a girl. Leo just laughed and then he cried, saying that once he made it big, he'd bring both his dad and me over. He hugged me at the train station before he left. Felt so strange. Then he walked away without looking back. 2 months into my freshman year of college, I got a call from his dad. He told me Leo's girlfriend couldn't take it anymore. A month ago, she had stolen his wallet and run off. He was too embarrassed to tell anyone, so he'd been struggling alone, penniless, for a month. When he couldn't take it anymore, he finally called his dad for help. That day, I took an overnight train to find him. He was filthy, like a homeless person. In that moment, I was furious, so angry my heart ached. I coldly yelled at him for being so pathetic, for letting some trashy person reduce him to this. He covered his face and cried, repeating my words, "I'm so pathetic." That night, I decided to drop out of college and build a life with him. The memories after that are a blur. His dad got cancer and was in the hospital. The bills were enormous. Leo suddenly came to me and said, "There's this older woman. She said if I sleep with her, she'll pay for my dad's medical bills." I was speechless. I couldn't tell him no, but I couldn't tell him to do it either. In that moment, I hated something fiercely. Maybe I hated how powerless I was. But my anger twisted my words, and all that came out was a mocking, "You're so pathetic." He opened his mouth, then looked down and walked away. I shouldn't have said that. Later, I managed to earn the money for his dad's treatment. The look in Leo's eyes that day was so bright, sparkling. He was kind of adorable. I swore to myself that I would make a lot of money. Then he said he wanted to date me, but he never said he loved me. Later, I became famous. The publicity stunts with a famous actor made me a lot of money. Leo started to get jealous and bitter. He finally became like me, like I was during all those years of silent hysteria. I loved seeing him act like a madman. Even more, I loved it when, after a huge fight, he would have to come crawling back to me, his eyes wet and pleading like a little puppy. Only then could I feel that he loved me. He didn't know that I was the one who leaked our relationship to the press. Everyone online said he forced me into marriage, but I knew I was the one who did the forcing. When those shippers insulted him, it hurt me to see it. But when he turned to me, cornered and helpless, and threw himself into my arms, I felt an overwhelming thrill. So that's what it felt like. The roles from our youth had been completely reversed. I loved having this control over his emotions. I loved that he was pathetic, but only for me. I loved that he was surrounded by enemies, with only me to rely on. I especially loved the tears he cried when he was hurt, the ones that smelled of pain and helplessness, day after day, year after year. But how did I lose him?